One aspect of visual effects involves creating masks to isolate areas of our footage. Of course, since what we want to cut out will often move over time in our shot, animating masks manually isn't always the first approach we want to tackle on our list. But sometimes manually animating masks is unavoidable. This work of rotoscoping is really the unsung hero of visual effects, a tedious task whose results are supposed to go unseen. In this movie, we'll examine the pen tool and how we can use it to create animated masks and create transparency. In my shot, I've got a long jumper whose foot contact there is going to be accentuated with a bit of ground shatter. So as I introduce that top layer here, you'll see that ground shatter happens on top of the foot. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit here. I'm going to shorten the duration of our work area. So right here, we can click and drag or hit B on the keyboard to begin that work area and N to create the out point. Now when we create a preview, it'll only show us that duration. So in order to sell this effect, we need to introduce that foot layer on top. And so let's go ahead and do that by selecting this background layer, going up to edit and duplicating that. I'm going to reorder that so it sits on top. Also rename this foot roto. Let's go ahead and trim the endpoint of this first layer by hitting Option left bracket to match in with that ground shatter. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit further and look for a point in the footage where the foot comes to kind of a nice resting place, somewhere right there. And it's here that I'm going to switch over to my pen tool and start clicking onto this roto layer. Make sure that's selected. And once you start clicking and dragging, you create a brand new mask. So as I click and drag, you'll see that I'm making these little Bezier handles that will smooth out the corners. Otherwise, you'll get a sharp corner. I really don't want that here. Definitely want this to be smoothed out a little bit and rounded. And when we come back to that first point again, and click on it, you see that we have a bit of our ground shatter showing, and layer 1 now has a brand new mask. Now, it's very important to create a keyframe for this mask path, because otherwise, as you start to work and tweak and move these points around, you won't be creating animation. Save yourself some time and definitely keyframe that first mask path. So now, as we scrub through, let's go ahead and look for these major changes right here as the foot starts to roll up, somewhere in there. Let's go ahead and switch over to our selection tool, and with our foot roto selected, go ahead and click on any one of those points. And now you can individually move these points and their handles. But rather than doing individual points, let's go ahead and click and drag and select a bunch of these guys, and we'll hit Command T, and you'll get the transformation box. Let's move this anchor point down here to where the ball of the foot is, and on the corner here, you'll notice that our cursor changes to these arrows, indicating that you can rotate them. So let's go ahead and rotate that all together, double click, and you'll come out of that transformation and you can freely move up these individual points again. So by default, our mask tool gets added in as add mode. You can select subtract to do the opposite. So it's just important to know that as you start to put in multiple masks, you can add or subtract or intersect based on these different modes here. So let's go ahead and disable this visibility of the mask. And you'll see that we have a bit of harsh edging around here, which doesn't really sit in well with the rest of the shot. Let's go ahead and move to our mask feather tool and introduce a couple of pixels of feathering to kind of help it sit in the shot a little bit better. We need to fine tune that a little bit. We'll turn this visibility back on again. Click and drag these guys with Command T, move these out just a little bit. And you can start to see how this task of rotoscoping gets to be pretty tedious, and this is a task I like to tackle with a pair of headphones and a nice playlist, just so that you can zone out and kind of just basically trace over this stuff. And as we come out, let's go ahead and focus in there where the foot goes completely out of the ground shatter layer, where it's completely cleared. Somewhere in there. Looks like it's moving much faster than we have it animated. So fine-tuning and scrubbing through and looking for where these major changes happen. And let's go ahead and turn this off and preview that. Okay, so in context, let's watch it all together. Of course, we can fine-tune this all day long, but you get the point. So as you can see, creating transparency manually by way of the pen tool isn't the most glamorous work, but it's vital for visual effects. Oftentimes, if no other methods will work, hand rotoscoping can always come through.